I'm going to talk about two very timely projects going on in the city of Fort Lauderdale. And the first is in relation to Adaptation Action Area and a pilot program we're undertaking right now. And so you heard this morning about the Adaptation Action Area, but what does it really mean, right? And there's some people think that it's like Nancy said, it's kind of like the kiss of death almost, right? If you designate an area as an adaptation, you know, because it means no further development or, you know. So there's a lot of, a little bit of confusion out there when you hear it. Some of the elected officials are a little confused about it. But it's very simple, and again, it was born out of the compact through that whole policy agenda that we work on a year-to-year basis. And it's simply an optional designation in local comprehensive plans for those areas experiencing coastal flooding due to extreme high tides and storm surge and related impacts of sea level rise. And then further, it's really, the designation is really to help maximize funding and infrastructure funding. So the city of Fort Lauderdale is fortunate enough to have been chosen to work with Broward County and with our friends at the Regional Planning Council. We got a state grant so that we can actually start to experiment with this concept of adaptation action areas. And we are going to be looking at our city, looking at our maps, and going through also a very public process in terms of talking to the residents again, and talking to the different partners in the region. And we hope to identify certain areas of the city, go through that process of you know, identifying and delineating it in our comprehensive plans, and really become a bit of a case study and a model for other cities. That's part of the fact that we're a pilot. The Regional Planning Council will kind of write it up in terms of a case study, so hopefully other cities can learn from our experience and replicate it. The important thing there is that as we go through this process and as we identify the areas, we need to tie it back to our existing capital improvement program and then really use this information to make strategic investments in our infrastructure. So on that one, stay tuned and probably follow us. I think Jim's going to have a website up kind of following our work, and you'll see over the next 18 months how this progresses. The second real-life issue that we're facing right now in the city of Fort Lauderdale is, if you recall, in October, we had the extreme high tides, as usual, and we also had Hurricane Sandy before it went north. It was hanging out in the Bahamas, and for many, many days, we had a lot of storm surge and the high tide and, you know, sand and huge portions of A1A. So it took about a good week to really clean that up over and over again. The following month, Thanksgiving morning, we woke up to a portion of A1A that actually collapsed. You know, and the beach was eroded, the sidewalk collapsed, and then the road was really compromised. It's a 4-block stretch of beach. We have about 7 miles of beach in the city, but we had to really you know, shore it up and make sure it was safe. We're currently working with the state transportation department, with the county and the city to look at a short-term solution, really just trying to protect it. But we also are looking at a long-term solution to protect the beach and the roadway. Now, the reason this is an important project right now is that it's taking advantage of a post-disaster recovery project and really looking at what do we do differently. You know, do we build the same road that was there before, or do we build a road that's elevated somewhat, narrower, and then we put dunes on the beach to protect the beach? And that's the conversation that we're having with our community and with our residents. Dr. Gassman and I were at a community meeting right after the event happened. I think there must have been more than 200 people in the room. And that was great because we had all of our elected officials there, we had the community there, and the community was telling us we have to do things differently. And that's very powerful when you have a room full of residents saying, you know, you have to do something to protect. Apparently, the same part of A1A is right in front of very expensive homes. It's not in the tourist area, it's more of the private homes. And years ago, that homeowners association did not want anything to do with dunes. They didn't want anything obstructing their view. that same group has now come back to the city and they have come up with their own plan. And they're telling us, we do want dunes. So that was kind of the people that had been in the city much longer than I had been there were worried about that. But by creating that conversation, by talking to people, by really informing, and I think what happened with Hurricane Sandy in the Northeast brought a lot of attention to this issue. And we have to use those opportunities to, again, continue that conversation, continue the education. And in this case, it's working. I think that we're all rallying around to bring something back, but in a project with the notion of reducing our future risk and really making us resilient.